Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to Syriana Analysis. I'm your host, Almassian. I'm very cautious when I speak about Germany and very cautious when I criticize German foreign policy or domestic policy for many reasons. I'm not going to dive in now. However, I do live in Germany. I pay taxes here. Therefore, as a political commentator, I feel I'm entitled to criticize a policy that is harming the interests of Germany and the interests of the German people. I'm not here to attack Germany. This is not my intention. I'm here to criticize a policy that is harming the German people. So what I'm doing is a service to the German people and not wishing any harm to the German people. In fact, I do not wish anything but good, prosperity, security, stability, and welfare to the German people. I do live here since 2015, and I haven't seen anything but respect and good treatment from most of the German people that I encountered till now. This introduction is very important before I dive in to details of this video, which is the Foreign Minister of Germany, Annalena Baerbock. She was in the United States, and she called Chinese President Xi Jinping a dictator, which I'm truly astonished after watching this video, because in politics, you have to be very wise in picking your enemies. And since the collective West and the governments in these countries, they consider Russia a threat and an enemy. Therefore, because in their opinion, Russia is going to conquer Ukraine, and after Ukraine, Poland, and then they will come to Western Europe, regardless of how realistic is this. This is what they believe in, right? Or this is what they are propagating, and they are marketing their policy in this way. That fear-mongering against Russia, that Russia is going to conquer the West. This is the narrative. So from their point of view, if you want to understand their policy, you will see that, okay, this is a threat to their national security. This is why they're doing this from their own perspective. But what has China done to Germany? It's a serious question. What has China done to Germany for the German foreign minister to call Xi Jinping a dictator? I'm not here to defend China or whether to argue or not whether Xi Jinping is a dictator or not. I'm here to tell you that in politics, you need to be very wise in picking up your fights, and especially if you want to fight two enemies at the same time. If you consider China an enemy and Russia an enemy, the wise thing to do is to fight each of them separately and not together. This is the wise thing to do. But when you are turning both sides against you, these two powers are coming closer and closer together. And this is, and you can see what happened after the Ukraine war. China and Russia are now allies into extent that nobody has imagined. Since the end of World War II, at no time Russia and China came as close as they are now. And this is the threat against the West. So if you consider China and Russia your enemy, you don't want to bring them closer together, right? Therefore, Annalena Baerbock's statements here serve serve this alliance between China and Russia. So, in my opinion, she is shooting the leg of Germany by saying so. And I truly believe that China is not going to let this statement go by. There will be consequences on the trade level. There will be consequences on the diplomatic level. And I believe that Xi Jinping and the foreign minister, the Chinese have, in my opinion, a dignity, they have an honor, and they preserve that through such reactions. So I was watching this interview and I was astonished, to be honest with you. Why would she say anything like this to the press? This is a serious question. So this is Annalena Baerbock on Fox TV. Check what she says.
With liberty and peace in Ukraine. And we will support Ukraine as long as it takes. Because if Putin were to win this war, what sign would that be for other dictators in the world, like Xi, like the Chinese president? So therefore, Ukraine has to win this war. Freedom and democracy have to win. And we will stand with Ukraine as long as it takes.
To be honest with you guys, it feels to me like when you watch this video, it feels like there is an artificially produced video. You don't feel there is a human sitting there and speaking. You feel like there is a robot speaking. And I don't mean to dehumanize her. I mean that the way they speak, it's like there is a script and everybody has to follow the script. Like there is a software that you installed in the brains of these politicians that they have to repeat these lines. And this is very childish things to say. First things first, was Annalena Baerbock concerned when the United States was conquering and bombing other countries? And what sign would have that sent to other countries that they're allowed to bomb with complete impunity? Or this is only exclusive to Russia and to China? And all this talk about China is because of Taiwan, you know that, right? And all the microchips production. They don't care about the Taiwanese people. They do care about the technological products that are being produced there that the West need desperately. And instead of them trying to find a mutual ground with China so that in the case of any confrontation, let's say between China and Taiwan, so that Chinese side would respect and guarantee that the flow of these technologies would not stop to the West, they are increasingly poking in the eye of the dragon. Just like they poked in the eyes of the bear. The Russian bear in Ukraine, they have been poking it for at least 2 decades. And now they're poking the eye of the dragon in China through the gate of Taiwan. How can the West win any sort of a war if China and Russia come together? There is no win-win situation here. It's going to be lose-lose. It's going to be everybody is losing. There will be tens of millions of deaths, and humanity will completely change as we know it. So this policy is very, very dangerous. And those are the people who call themselves feminists. This is the thing that bothers me the most. She came to power with the logo that the feminist foreign policy, empathy, we have to stop creating wars, we have to stop sending weapons to the war zones. And look at her. She looks like a warmonger robot here by propagating these war talking points, right? It really makes me sad, to be honest with you, when I see foreign minister of Germany is speaking like this. There is an expert on Twitter. His name is Arnaud Bertrand, and he is an expert on Chinese affairs. He says, what were the Germans thinking putting that woman as their top diplomat? First of all, the Germans didn't put her in a position of a diplomat because the people do not elect the politicians who are going to become in positions of ministries. The people elect the parties, and the parties elect the chancellery, and the chancellery then forms the government. So therefore, the people didn't choose her to become a foreign minister at the first place. And I truly believe if the German people are asked now in 2023, in September, I truly believe that over 90% of the people will say she's incompetent for her position. Germany, despite its past as Japan's ally during World War II, had managed to regain a lot of sympathy in China, which clearly proved immensely beneficial for them as a country. Now she does her very best to destroy this purely for ideological reasons, and he's correct. There is no any political or economic gain behind making China your enemy. This is pure ideological reasons, and pure for the gains, he says, absolutely nothing doing that. Zero, zilch. America at least has some logic to go against China. They are afraid of losing their hegemony, the dollar, etc. But Germany? It's also pointless and stupid, but I guess history has shown that when Germany turns ideological, it's rarely a pretty sight. And I truly agree with him because I do not see personally any gain for Germany in this regard. They are completely turning a superpower against them for purely ideological reasons, and they're not even making any sense in this regard, right? So I checked some of the reactions of the German people on Twitter, and this is Frederick Todenhofer. I think he's the son of the former CDU politician Todenhofer. I'm not sure. This is in German, but if we translate it quickly, he says China is Germany's most important trading partner. Imports and exports are equal to 245 billion euros. And Baerbock simply calls Chinese President Xi a dictator on US TV. I'm not a China fan, but Germany's highest diplomat shouldn't care about our economy, or should care about our economy and diplomacy. The translation is not correct. This is another German commenting on the issue. And he says, also in German, let's translate it quick. Baerbock goes to the US, Right's house, he means the right-wing TV, Fox News. Suddenly she has no reservations, of course, for like this. The Fox News is like the opposition party AfD here, right? And the Green Party, they send instructions to their politicians in all the federal states in Germany not to cooperate with AfD. And if AfD comes to scores the highest points, let's say in the next elections, the Green categorically refuse to form an alliance with them. They consider them fascists, neo-Nazis, and all this stuff. But despite that, she goes on Fox News to attack China, right? And Fox News is the same like AfD here. Anyways, she doesn't have reservations. And she insults Xi Jinping, who undoubtedly enjoys more support among his people than Annalena has among hers. And that's very accurate because Chinese president popularity among his people is very high. I do not understand why do people think that they are entitled to speak about the Chinese president when he is popular among his people, and who told them that the liberal democratic rule will fit in China? Who told them that this is the best way of governance? Who told them that the people in China want that? And who told them that they have the moral higher ground and the superiority to give us and Chinese and the Russians lectures on how to govern their country? And this is her again in the United States, and Secretary Antony Blinken says, honored to welcome my colleague and German foreign minister in Washington, blah, 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 all these blah, blahs. But if you're a German, this should boil your blood, because the United States only recently blasted the Nord Stream pipelines. They bombed the infrastructure of Germany. A NATO country bombed another infrastructure of another NATO country to harm Russia and to harm Europe. Now, by doing so, the United States is selling liquefied natural gas to Germany 3 times higher the price that Germany was buying from Russia. And 2, the American side has completely changed the foreign policy of Germany in a way that you do not find any differences now between the foreign policy of Washington and the foreign policy of Berlin. Truly speaking, if you have any honor, how would you shake hands with this person who bombed your infrastructure and sent your economy now into recession? The heating bills, the gas prices, the fuel prices are skyrocketing in Germany. The inflation is high. The people are paying everything more for their groceries and for anything they buy. And this is all thanks to the United States. And you're going there and you're shaking hands. It's really crazy for me. Look, and as I mentioned, I'm not attacking Germany. I'm just criticizing the policy of Germany, which is made by certain individuals, right? If these individuals change and being replaced, let's say in the next elections, and sane people come to power, people who understand what is the interest of Germany, then you will see a different one. But the other day I was with a German politician and he told me, even if we come to power and we want to change the policy, this damage is irreversible and we will need 100 years to reverse this damage. And I think he's correct on this. This is also another expert on China. He says what Xi did, he lifted 98.9 million out of abject poverty, grew the middle class from 250 million to 700 million, up rural area income by 2.2, like twofold times, cut pollution by 42.3%, got a 92% approval rating. Gardeners like Baerbock have a visceral hatred for strong leaders in the jungle. I mean, he's correct. whether you agree with him or not, on China, I mean, the popularity of Xi is so much higher than the popularity of Baerbock. Baerbock's party, they are scoring 13 to 14% in Germany. And even Putin's ratings are very high, and those are not from Russian sources. Those are from respectable polling centers, and they are, I think Putin's ratings are over 88% now, if I'm not mistaken, but it's very close to 90%. The Arnold Bertrand here also, he shares a statement from von der Leyen. She's another similar, let's say, Annalena Baerbock style politician. She's the head of the EU's commission. Look what she says on China.
We must defend ourselves against unfair practices. But equally, it is vital to keep open lines of communication and dialogue with China, because there are also topics where we can and have to cooperate, de-risk, not decouple. This will be my approach
First of
with
all,
the Chinese
nobody
leadership
elected von der
at
Leyen.
the EU-China
So,
summit later
if
this
she
year.
thinks she is a dictator, I think she has to look into the mirror, first of all. And if you read between the lines of her speech here, de-risking and not decoupling, like Arnold says here, diplomacy with European characteristics. Quote, like, this is what she basically says, right? China, we despise you. We see you as a risk. We want to de-risk from, almost akin to a disease. We need to defend ourselves from you. You do not share our values, and we look down upon yours. We think you are basically barbaric monsters. But despite our best wishes, it looks like we cannot do without collaborating with you on some things, and I want to really stress how much we dislike this. So let's work together, shall we? This is exactly what von der Leyen says between the lines. If you read between the lines, she wants to keep the relationship with China, but at the same time, she wants to draw limitations. And basically, this is because of the Chinese competition with European factories, especially when it comes to the technologies and car manufacturing. They don't want an honest, open competition with China, because on the long run, they will lose. And especially when it comes to the conditions of the aftermath of the Ukraine war, when the energy prices are skyrocketing and the German factories are leaving the country and going to other parts of the world because they cannot sustain with these energy prices, right? So instead of continuing this fight in Ukraine against Russia, maybe, just maybe, if you're wise, if you want to achieve the goals of your countries and the interests of your countries and serve the economy of your countries and therefore the pockets of your own people, maybe you want to de-risk also with Russia and stop antagonizing China and understand that the era of a unipolar world is over, and that these countries have the right to share the responsibilities of the world, and they have the right to also participate in the decision making. You are not the police of the world. You are not in a position to teach anyone about anything, especially when it comes to human rights, especially when it comes to democracies, blah, blah, blah. Maybe, just maybe, the correct approach is cooperation instead of confrontation. Just maybe. This is another tweet in Portugal that involves the German car industry and China. So Volkswagen, which is a German, car manufacturer, has this massive factory in Portugal. We are speaking so massive that it generates 1.5% of the Portuguese GDP. Problem is, for a new days, the factory was completely stopped because it couldn't get supplies of a sprocket that is fundamental in the production of its cars. The Slovenian supplier of these sprockets had its own factory destroyed in a flood. The Volkswagen Portuguese factory, out of options, announced a 9-week production stoppage and started laying off workers. Who came to rescue? China. Lo and behold, Volkswagen just announced they would they have found alternative suppliers for the missing part in China as well as in Spain, and the factory could reopen ahead of schedule. All is well that ends well. All is well that ends well. This was on the same day as von der Leyen gave yet another speech on how China is a risk and how it restored to unfair practices in the auto industry. The irony. How can you disagree with this statement, man? And to be honest, some people may think like I'm glorifying China here. I'm just calling for free and honest market competition with China, and let's see who is going to beat. Without restrictions in trade restrictions and business restrictions, technological restrictions against China, the collective West, they cannot compete with China on the long run. And this is everybody knows it, and that's why they are imposing all these draconian measures against China. But there are other people like Elbridge Colby, and I checked him on Wikipedia. They say that he was an advisor for Trump. They say he's an American national security policy expert who served as Assistant Secretary of Defense for Strategy and Force Development from 2017 to 2018 during the Trump administration. He led the development and implementation of the 2018 U.S. National Defense Strategy, which, among other things, shifted the Department of Defense's focus on the challenges posed by the rise of the People's Republic of China. In June 2018, Colby was named director of the defense program at the Center for a New American Security. In 2019, he founded the Marathon Initiative together with Wes Mitchell. So, as you can see, this guy thinks that China is a graver danger on the United States than on Russia, and he shifted the national security priorities of the United States in 2018 under the Trump administration against China. And this is what he says now. The US has a very strong interest in not allowing China to subordinate Taiwan. The US thus should be willing to fight to defend Taiwan, to fight, which means sending weapons, sending ammunition, sending soldiers, sending warplanes. He's literally calling for a fight, a war with China. The key is to make sure we can do it successfully and at a tolerable cost. What is the tolerable cost if there is a war with China? Can please somebody tell me in the comments below, what is the tolerable cost? 100 million deaths? 200 million deaths? 300 million deaths? 500 million deaths? 1 billion deaths? What's the tolerable cost in a direct confrontation with nuclear power? I do not understand. That's why we need to laser focus, he says. Taiwan's lassitude, American inattention, lack of urgency, and Japan's slow movement are what could put us in this awful position in the face of Beijing's historic military and nuclear buildup. We all need to wake up and laser focus on a denial defense for Taiwan. It's important to emphasize those saying we shouldn't defend Taiwan are off base, but those pretending like we don't need to focus are also putting us in a terrible position. It would be foolish to fight a battle we know we would lose badly, so we need to ensure we are ready. The analogy on this point is to the Battle of France in 1940. Churchill wanted to send more fighters to help the collapsing effort, but the Royal Air Force said they couldn't defend Britain if he did. Losing Taiwan would be a disaster, but you can't throw away your best vital forces in a hopeless cause. So the key is to make sure we are ready, so we have a good shot to win. People saying we can do everything and still prepare for Taiwan when we really can't are putting us on a road to disaster. You know why the United States is very much, let's say, interested in Taiwan? I've explained this multiple times on Syriana Analysis, but for them, they see Taiwan as an advanced satellite region. Although they accept the one China policy, which means they accept that Taiwan is part of China, but at the same time, they want to convert and create a region in Taiwan which is hostile against China. One of the reasons is because they want to limit the trade routes in the face of the Chinese tankers there, the ships, to move freely. in the Far East Asia. Secondly, they want to have a monopoly over the technological production in Taiwan, especially when it comes to the chips. And thirdly is a military presence for the United States. They don't have, I don't think they have a military airbase there, but they are sending weapons to Taiwan. And they are creating another pawn against China this time, just like they created a pawn in Ukraine against Russia. Those are very similar cases, despite their geographical differences. But the United States is the most insincere, is the most inhumane, is the most bloodthirsty power that we have witnessed after World War II. And the United States is ready to sacrifice hundreds of thousands, millions of people for the sake of the tiny elite in the United States. This is not in the interest of the American people. What are the American people gain from this confrontation with China? What do the American people gain from confrontation with Russia? The interests of the elite is at stake. It's not this interest of the people that is at stake. The people in the United States are not living in high economic standards, and they're not enjoying some sort of a welfare. It's not a dream that lots of people think that moving in the United States is a dream. Personally, I wouldn't move to the United States. Maybe probably to Texas. I don't know. Among the people who propagate for free lifestyle, like freedom and freedom of speech, and the rest is, in my opinion, is going into wokeism, is heading towards ideological indoctrination. And when you prepare a complete generation, brainwash them, and make them believe that Russia and China are going to attack the United States, you will have an army of woke people who are marching like zombies against these pups. But when the time comes, and if the United States shoots the first bullet against one of these superpowers, who is going to do the fighting? Do you really think that the people who believe in the woke ideology, feminized men, are going to carry arms and go to fight? Do you really believe that only ballistic missiles and technological means can finish wars? No. At the end of the day, the people who are fighting on the ground, they're doing the infighting. They're doing the fighting just like what's happening in Ukraine right now, right? So I truly believe that this is a counterproductive policy, even against the United States. And one of the U.S. Marine Corps veteran, Lucas Gage, whom I had it multiple times on Syriana Analysis, he shares this from the Foreign Ministry of the United States. So what the United States considers Taiwan. Though the United States doesn't have diplomatic relations with Taiwan, we have a robust unofficial relationship. The United States' approach to Taiwan has remained consistent across decades and administrations. The United States has a long-standing one-China policy, which is guided by the Taiwan Relations Act, the 3 U.S.-China joint communiques, and the 6 assurances. We oppose any unilateral changes to the status quo from either side. We do not support Taiwan independence, and we expect cross-strait differences to be resolved by peaceful means. And Lucas, he comments on this. He was in Iraq, by the way, 2 times, in 2003 and I think 2006. Our one China policy is written by snakes, he says. It is basically a non-position, so our warmongering politicians can claim anything at this point while pretending to cater to China's sovereignty over Taiwan. It's only a matter of time China makes a move on Taiwan, and we should stay out of it. Yeah, you should stay out of it, dear Americans. If you're watching this from the United States, especially the audience of Redacted, Clayton Morris and Natalie Morris, thank you guys very much for subscribing and tuning in to my channel. I believe around 500 of you came and subscribe to my channel recently after my latest interview on their show. I truly appreciate that you are also on my channel, and I truly believe that Clayton and Natalie are great journalists. But since we're speaking about incompetent politicians and politicians who are working against the interests of their own people, there is another person who is working against his own people and sending tens of thousands of his men to their death, and that is Zelensky. He posted a new video here. He says 86 leading defense companies from 21 countries have already confirmed their participation in Ukraine's first defense industries forum. The event will help Ukraine's defense industry integrate with those of our NATO allies and other partners, ramp up production and establish new high-tech partnerships. I thank everyone throughout the world who helps us enhance our shared security, as well as those who are willing to work in Ukraine. Together we are gaining strength to protect life and freedom. I just want to mention, guys, here one thing. I don't want to play this video, to be honest. I just want to mention one thing. Remember what the BlackRock is doing in Ukraine? They are having exclusive contracts to rebuild Ukraine, which is basically they are owning the land, they're owning the destroyed cities, they're owning the properties of the people, right? This is how they expand. We always speak about politicians, we always speak about governments, but they are non-state actors who have massive influence over the course of the international relations. One of them is BlackRock, and BlackRock is heavily invested in Ukraine, and now they they have already gained exclusive contracts to so-called rebuild Ukraine. This is their way of conquering countries after destroying it. You push the military-industrial complex, which you also fund, the Raytheon and other companies. You push the government and the politicians to go into war against, or cause a proxy war, just like in Syria, in Libya, in Yemen, now in Ukraine. The same thing they want to do with Taiwan. First, you sell weapons, you generate tens of billions of dollars as profits, and secondly, the destroyed cities, you come and promise them to rebuild this country, so you own the territory and you own the land. Do you realize how evil is this? And if do the Ukrainians know about these cases, or are they okay with it? It's mind-boggling, to be honest, the way things are processing and progressing in Ukraine. It's so obvious now that after the BlackRock, now Zelensky is selling his defense industry to the military-industrial complex in the United States, so that this military-industrial complex and the factories belonging to them come to Ukraine and manufacture weapons there. Do you really think that this is going into the pockets of the Ukrainian people and the Ukrainian economy, or to the pockets of the corrupted politicians in Ukraine? And there are many Ukrainian politicians who have made hundreds of millions out of this war, and they are cruising on their fancy boats now in Monaco and in France, in Spain, while they send their countrymen to die in this war. And at the same time, their sons and their daughters are living in Los Angeles, in California, in Cannes, in Nice. And there's so many videos for them. You can go and check on social media. But just to confirm this argument that I mentioned to you guys, this is Julian Assange, who warned us about the Afghanistan war and said this is not about, they don't want to win this war. They just want to prolong this war. And this is why.
Because the goal is not to completely subjugate Afghanistan. The goal is to use Afghanistan to wash money out of the tax bases of the United States, out of the tax bases of European countries, through Afghanistan and back into the hands of a transnational security entity. That is the goal, i.e. the goal is to have an endless war, not a successful war.
They want for this war to continue as long as it takes, like Annalena Baerbock says. I don't think she even understands what does that mean and who is benefiting from it. I truly believe that she's incompetent. I truly believe that she doesn't understand geopolitics. I truly believe she never saw the map of control over Ukraine. She doesn't know what are the front lines. She doesn't know where the Russian forces are focusing their efforts. She doesn't know the defense strategy of us. She doesn't know nothing. She knows nothing. I truly believe that. She's very, very incompetent person. Speaking of Julian Assange, guys, you remember that after his expose and the publishing of sensitive information online that condemns the United States for committing war crimes in different places in the world, the establishment waged a brutal campaign against him and they accused him of rape and sexual misconduct and everything. And this was proven later to be false. And now they're coming after Russell Brand. And Russell Brand has been the past few years very, very vocal against the military-industrial complex, very, very vocal against the pharmaceutical industries. And accordingly, now he's accused again of, just like Julian Assange, of sexual misconduct. And this is him. He published the video on his YouTube and Twitter accounts.
Wonders. Now, this isn't the usual type of video we make on this channel where we critique, attack and undermine the news in all its corruption, because in this story, I am the news. I've received two extremely disturbing letters, or a letter and an email, one from a mainstream media TV company, one from a newspaper, listing a litany of extremely egregious and aggressive attacks, as well as some pretty stupid stuff like my community festival should be stopped, that I shouldn't be able to attack mainstream media narratives on this channel. But amidst this litany of astonishing, rather baroque attacks are some very serious allegations that I absolutely refute. These allegations pertain to the time when I was working in the mainstream, when I was in the newspapers all the time, when I was in the movies. And as I've written about extensively in my books, I was very, very promiscuous. Now, during that time of promiscuity, the relationships I had were absolutely always consensual. I was always transparent about that then, almost too transparent. And I'm being transparent about it now as well. And to see that transparency metastasized into something criminal that I absolutely deny makes me question, is there another agenda at play? Particularly when we've seen coordinated media attacks before, like with Joe Rogan, when he dared to take a medicine that the mainstream media didn't approve of. And we saw a spate of headlines from media outlets across the world using the same language. I'm aware that you guys have been saying in the comments for a while, watch out, Russell, they're coming for you. You're getting too close to the truth. Russell Brand did not kill himself. I know that a year ago, there was a spate of articles. Russell Brand's a conspiracy theorist. Russell Brand's right wing. I'm aware of news media making phone calls, sending letters to people I know for ages and ages. It's been clear to me, or at least it feels to me like there's a serious and concerted agenda to control these kind of spaces and these kind of voices. And I mean my voice along with your voice. I don't mind them using my books and my stand-up to talk about my promiscuous consensual conduct in the past. What I seriously refute are these very, very serious criminal allegations. Also, it's worth mentioning that there are witnesses whose evidence directly contradicts the narratives that these two mainstream media outlets are trying to construct, apparently in what seems to me to be a coordinated attack. Now, I don't want to get into this any further because of the serious nature of the allegations, but I feel like I'm being attacked, and plainly they are working very closely together. We are obviously going to look into this matter because it's very, very serious. In the meantime, I want you to stay close, stay awake, but more important than any of that, if you can.
So what do you think, guys, about this case? Russell Brand's case. The media is accusing him of very serious crimes, by the way. I have read the investigation on, I think, the Sunday Times. So the Times, the Sunday Times, and another mainstream outlet, they have conducted joint investigation, which already raises the question marks. Why is this organized investigation, and why is this these three outlets are coming together? Because it also reminds me of the attacks of the German mainstream media against me, when the public television ARD and the T Online, they came together and they did joint investigation about me also. So just for you to know, guys, I'm a very radical person. As you can see on my YouTube channel, I'm propagating conspiracy theories. I'm the propaganda warrior for Assad. I'm a radical right-wing fascist person. I mean, you can go and see all my YouTube channels and all my tweets. Like, I have hundreds of them on my YouTube channel, and if you can find one, just one fascistic or right-wing thing, I would give you anything you want. And that's why I always take such attacks against anti-establishment influential people with a grain of salt. Did he commit any sort of sexual misconduct? Probably. I don't know. I wasn't there. It was 10, 15 years ago when he had a sexual addiction, he had a coke addiction and all this stuff. Probably. I don't know. But back then he was one of them. And they didn't attack him, they didn't investigate him. And now when he left this bubble of the mainstream and he created his own empire, media empire, and he's surfing against the mainstream narratives during the pandemic, in the Ukraine war, RFK, JFK, and all this stuff, right? So yeah, I think it's very dishonest from the media to focus on this case now, and also it raises lots of questions about the legitimacy and the credibility of the alleged victims. The other day my wife was asking me, why are you reading so much about this case? And it's a very sensitive issue for me because I despise sexual misconduct and I despise any rapist, right? The rapist for me is... I don't want to say what punishment do I want for the rapist because YouTube will take down my channel, but maybe you can guess, right? This is my approach for the rapists. But if I was a woman and somebody raped me, I don't think that the first thing I would do is to go to the media, and especially after 15 years. I would go to the police. And in terms of the laws, the regulations here, especially in Western Europe, in the UK, you can see that the laws are very in favor of women, especially when it comes to abuse from the men's side, right? Because men are more violent than women and they could exert tyrannical physical power against women, and women can be victims. But women can also be very vicious and can be very vicious in terms of verbal aggression and distorting somebody's image, just like probably what they're doing now with Russell Brand. I mean, there are women who accuse Cristiano Ronaldo of rape, Neymar of rape, and there's so many famous people who are accused of sexual misconduct. And then one of them was this famous case in the Hollywood. I forgot their names now. And they were all proven to be false. So of course, some women are very dishonest. Some women are very, very sneaky when it comes to such cases, and they're opportunistic. I'm not accusing all women. Please, YouTube, be careful of what I'm saying. Some women are vicious, just like some men are vicious. And these vicious men, they resort to physical violence, and some vicious women, they resort to verbal violence, and they resort into character assassination, distorting the image of their ex-husband or ex-boyfriend, especially when this person is rich and influential. So what do you think about this case? I am taking it with a grain of salt, and I would say he is innocent until proven guilty. And some people were trying to criticize me on X, previously Twitter, for saying this. I do not care about your opinion. I truly do not care. Because you guys, you want for Russell Brand to be criminalized for his political opinion, and you wish that this woman were raped. Imagine how sick-minded you are, that you wish that all these stories turn true, and you wish that this woman were really raped instead of this story being false. How sick-minded person you are to wish that this woman would have been were raped in the past. I truly wish for the truth to come out, and if this woman were abused, they should go to the police, they should go to the court, and they should sue Russell Brand, and let's see if he is guilty or not. But until then, can you imagine the amount of pressure on Russell Brand if he is innocent? Because some people were telling me, this is not the right time to speak about this, we have to have empathy. What about having an empathy also with Russell Brand? Let's suppose, what if he is innocent and all these attacks against him are manufactured? What about you being empathetic with Russell Brand this time? Or your empathy only goes in one direction? It's very hypocritical. Anyways, thank you very much, guys. This video with your friends. And if you want to support my independent work, there are different means in the description below, from Patreon to PayPal to products that I am also selling as affiliate marketer, such as the vitamin D3K2, which is very essential for boosting the immune system. It doesn't replace your immune system, guys. It's a supplement. So you have to practice, you have to have a good diet, and also then take this supplement. I'm selling it. I don't, you do not pay any penny extra. I just get some commission from it. This is how I finance my work, so that I present content like this to you. I hope you appreciate it. I've been your host, Almassian of Syriana Analysis, and see you next time.